Yeah, of course, of course. Okay. Sorry, just got water in my throat. Okay. So we are getting into part two of our notes. But before we do that, let's look at the results of our polling, which is a recap from yesterday. Let's end it and let's look at the right answers. Based on yesterday's notes, how much of what we hear do we typically forget? The correct answer was, in fact, 75%, which means that 8 of you got that right. So well done. We do forget about 75% of what we hear. The next thing is, which of the following is true about perception? All of those are true. So if you checked all of them, good job. Looks like only 2 people did that, but that's okay. It is every single one of those things applies to perception. It is the process of selecting and organizing and interpreting sensory information into a coherent depiction of the world around us. And then it's also based on our past experiences and background. It does impact our personal worldview, and we are also limited when it comes to it. Stimuli is anything that stimulates the 5 senses. Thank you to the one person that picked $1,400 checks as a joke, I'm assuming. Petting a dog, drinking hot chocolate, smelling flowers, listening to music, and looking at a sunset are examples of stimuli. So that also would be the correct answer. So if you make 1 or 4, answer choice 1 or 4, then you're correct. And then the last question: which of these is not a factor of selective perception? Ooh, it was intensity. Intensity is not one of them. Proximity, how close you are to the object or experience, that does play a factor into selective perception. So does utility, how useful the object or experience is. And so does reinforcement, creating a stimulus that encourages the likelihood of creating a stimulus again. If you have French fries and you've never had French fries before, and you like French fries, you're going to get French fries again because you liked how it made you feel. Okay, so that is just an example of selective perception. But good job. Well done. We'll do another one of those tomorrow. Okay, it's part 2 of our notes. Let's hide that. Selective attention. Mr. Smith, I thought we were talking about selective perception. Yes. Now, perception is how you build the world around you in your head. Attention is what you pay attention to. Okay, so they're similar but not exactly the same. But hopefully, throughout today's notes, we kind of really unpack that. So, selective attention refers to the choice to engage with or respond only to certain stimuli when several stimuli are presented at the same time. Mr. Smith, can you explain? You know I can. So, you're in your room. You know, you're on the Zoom. Things are going well. You're listening to music. It's still raining outside. I don't even know if it's still raining, but if it was raining this morning and it's still raining, all right. So it's raining outside. Your dog misses you. So your dog runs up and jumps in your lap. Your phone goes off. Your friend is sending you a TikTok. Your parents are also yelling at you that it's time to eat lunch, or they want to know what you want to eat lunch. And then at the same time, you're also thinking about how you haven't turned in a bunch of assignments for a bunch of your classes. That's a lot of stimuli to happen at the exact same time. So it can be very, very nerve-wracking and very, very unsure. So you have to figure out what you can pay attention to at that time. So when it comes to selective attention, there's a couple of things that do play a factor into it. One is novelty. So novelty is usually used when describing like joke shops or like, oh, that's so novel. But what that just means is that it's something that is rare, new, or uncommon or different. So maybe you and your friends always go to Chick-fil-A for lunch, but maybe, just maybe, you want to go find a taco truck. Wow, what a novel idea, right? But also, we know that you're just going to keep going to Chick-fil-A. We also pay selective attention based off of the size of something, the measurement of an object or grouping of objects, usually in relation to objects or groupings. Size could be, oh man, that I want to pay attention to that because it's so big, or oh, I want to pay attention to that because it's so small, or I want to pay attention to that because that's so loud, or it's so soft. Either way, the newness or uncommonness or the size of something do play a factor into what we pay attention to. Let's move on. Ooh, organization. Mr. Smith, there's a lot of words there. Can you not say them? I will say them. I'll simplify them. So I don't know how to tell you guys this, but our brains are better than we think they are because our brains organize information without us actively trying to do it, and it kind of just happens. It's insane. It's very cool. Our brains are super powerful, but the organization refers to the need to place perceived characteristics of something into the whole to which it seems to belong. Everything that you know about making sandwiches, you keep in one part of your brain. Everything you know about politics, you keep about one part of your brain. Everything you know about anime, everything you know about movies, pop culture, music, all you keep in certain parts of your brain. Now, you wouldn't just say, well, okay, well, the first thing you have to do is remember that even the worst hot sandwich is better than a cold one. You're not going to think about that in the middle of like your educational class, right? Unless you're me, because I talk about sandwiches all the time. But the idea is that our brain automatically organizes those things into little pieces or little frameworks that we will automatically remember. Constructivism explains the process we use to organize and interpret experiences by applying cognitive structures labeled schemata. Mr. Smith, there are too many words. Can you please explain? Of course. Now, we've seen this word before, schema. So, Mr. Smith, what's the difference between schema and schemata? Well, the T and the A. I'm just kidding. Schemata is the plural of schema. So we have a bunch of things in our brain, and they're all individual frameworks. If you know how to dance, you have a dance schemata. If you know math, you have a math schemata. If you know how to talk to your dog, then you have a talk to your dog schemata. You get the idea. A bunch of things in your brain that remind you how to do something all the time because it's something that you do all the time. Let's move on. So we're going to be talking about schemata for the next 2 slides. So these are organized clusters of knowledge and information about particular topics. The results of experiences and are dynamic and often changing as we encounter new relationships and life experiences. So think of it kind of like a video game skill tree, or like in Minecraft. When you show up, you have nothing, right? When we're born, we know nothing. We just know that our parents have to keep us alive. Now, at some point, we realize that we will have to take care of ourselves. So it's probably a good idea to understand how the world works. A lot of people talk about how they miss being a kid because they had no worries. And as you get smarter, unfortunately, you get more worried because you learn about things. Even yesterday, I learned about how there are 1,600 Americans that have gone missing in national parks, and just no one ever found them over the course of history, which is a horrifying thing to talk about. But again, I'll probably save it for the forum tomorrow. But yeah, I read this entire a blog post about it, and it was insane. But yeah, you go to a national park and people, like, if you go missing, like, they'll look for you for as long as they can. But there's just a bunch of people that are just missing and unaccounted for, and it's terrifying. But either way, the whole point that I'm trying to say is, like, you build your skill tree as you get older. As you learn new things, you learn, your brain gets stronger. You are not going to get worse as a person, I guess I should say. You're not going to forget how to dance. You're not going to forget your taste in music. You're not going to forget how to write. You're not going to forget how to be athletic. So you will only get better, and your brain will only expand, and you will get more schemata as you get older and as you have more experiences. Crazy, right? So you should always try to increase your skill tree or level your brain up or get more schemata in general. The result of experience, I already read that. The next thing is prototypes. These are knowledge structures which represent the most common attributes of a phenomenon. So if I said, I want everyone to imagine dancing, what do you imagine? So I just spun, so you might have thought about a ballerina. You might have thought about contemporary. You might have thought about jazz. You might have thought about any type of dance. Or you might not have thought about any of those because you don't really have a dancing background. But the idea is, in our brain, we have a prototype. Proto is Latin for first, and type is just type. So the first type. So these are knowledge structures which represent the most common attributes of a phenomenon. If I say, all right, everyone imagine swimming, you're going to imagine swimming. Do you imagine a lake or a pool? Morgan, lake or pool? Pool, right? Someone might have imagined a lake, someone might have imagined an ocean, someone might have imagined a river, someone might have imagined something else. But either way, we're thinking about what that skill is when it's not applying to anything, right? We're just kind of thinking about it as a concept. Then, of course, we have personal constructs. I know I haven't been annotating very well, but where's my little box? So personal constructs are ways that we assess people in social situations. As we talk to more people, we figure out how to talk to people. As we figure out how not to talk to people, we figure out how to talk to people better. Like I said, as we continue to practice these things, we get better at them. You're probably better at talking to your parents now than you were when you were younger, because now they respect you more, or at the very least, you're getting smarter and they're able to talk to you more like a person instead of just like a child that they have to take care of. Last slide. Stereotypes. Now, we talked about this in the first unit, but stereotypes don't necessarily always have to be bad. And so, because it can bring in some really good examples. Like, for example, I was talking to the student that visited last period. On the first day of your freshman year, you might be terrified, right? You have no idea where you're going to go. You don't know where your classes are, but you see a teacher, okay? Now, your stereotype is going to be like, well, that's a teacher. They help students. that teacher will help me. So you walk into that teacher, hey, where's B352? And they'll be like, oh, it's the third floor of the B building, but that doesn't exist because there's no third floor of the B building at Warren. You got to go to Marshall. I'm just kidding. But the idea is that you do think that teachers are going to help you, so you chase that stereotype, and it hopefully pays off. So stereotypes are impressions and expectations based on knowledge or beliefs about a specific group of people, which are then applied to all individuals who are members of that group. Mr. Smith, are stereotypes okay? That's a loaded question. Okay, racial stereotypes usually are not okay. Or at the very least, that's not where the conversation should end. Stereotypes are fun to joke about. Stereotypes are fun to, say in passing. But at the same time, you should always realize that everyone is different, and so you cannot apply one framework to every single person. That just doesn't work. Okay. But stereotypes do greatly influence the way messages are perceived. So that's kind of what a microaggression is. If you are kind of familiar with the newer discourse where people feel like, oh, I think that might be a little inappropriate what you just said, but and you're kind of doing it based off of what I'm assuming are a bunch of stereotypes. So that would be an example of that. And the last thing are scripts. Now, scripts we know that scripts exist for movies, but they also exist in our brain. We know that we know how to talk to our parents if we're hungry about something. We know how to talk to our siblings if we're frustrated about something. We know how to talk to our teacher if we need something from them. And if we don't, we figure it out. Maybe the first time you emailed the teacher, you said, yo, teacher, I'm failing. Can you help me out with that? I appreciate you. And then you put a bunch of emojis in it and then you send it. Probably not the best way to email the teacher. If the teacher tells you something, you'll learn about it and then you'll change your script. Then as you continue to interact with people and as you continue to practice, your script will get better and it will hopefully change the outcome of future events, because that's what scripts are. They're based on expectations of outcomes of events. If you are trying to have something fun happen with your friends or with your classmates, then you would probably follow a script that would do so. Okay. That's going to be it for the notes today. So we talked about schemata and how as we continue to get older, as we level up, so does our skill tree, and we figure out exactly how to make ourselves smarter by adding to our schemata and just overall in general being a better person.